how a calloused heart, a hardened heart, can cause us to have envy or be envious. And while Coy's putting that out, I appreciate Coy doing that for me. It's good to see everybody. I want to thank those of you who came out yesterday. We had a real good time with the graduates. And I made a statement to one of the mothers. I'm not sure which one it was, but I think Nancy was sitting around there too. When Nancy and I came here about over 6 years now, all the kids that graduated or graduating this week were in the 5th and 6th grade. And I've sat here and I've watched them grow. And they're my kids. I know they're your children, but they're my kids because I did a lot of things with them. We went to Dollywood, we went on hikes, we had lock-ins, which just about killed me. We had cookouts, devotionals, and so it was tough watching them grow up. Well, not tough watching them grow up. It's tough this year watching them graduate. And so I'm waiting on the other batch of kids that are growing up. And when they get up to age, and hopefully, I don't know if I'll be young enough to do the things with them that I did with these kids, but they are my kids. That's how I look at it. All righty. Envy. Without going to your notes, or without going to the page here, the outline, let's define. And I want you to define what is envy. Jealousy, okay. Nancy, you said what?
Wanting something that someone else has.
Wanting something. Well, let's talk about that for a moment. Is it wrong to want something that somebody else has?
No, but to the extent that you're willing.
There you go. That's what I want you to, that's what I want you to say. It's to the point that you want something so bad that it causes a lot of emotional stress on you. Because it's not bad to want something that somebody else has, as long as you haven't done what is called coveted. Okay? Because if somebody, Anthony, would you turn this one down just a tad? I keep getting feedback. If you, I forget the amount. See, I'm losing my mind. I'm going crazy, Roy. I'm going crazy. This week, you know how many times I lost my wallet this week? I lost my wallet 4 times. One time I was sitting in my easy chair. I was trying to get me a fishing license. And the website with Tennessee State Game Commission wouldn't work so good, so I went and got my wallet. Now, and my wallet has a small wallet, and I've been using just the small wallet lately because I didn't want the big one in my pocket. So I'm sitting there, and it wouldn't work, so I got up and went to the website on my laptop, and it wouldn't work there, so I said, okay. So I sat in my chair again, and Nancy comes home, and I said, I can't find my wallet. Because I was going to go and buy me one. I was going to do something. I was going somewhere. I couldn't find it anywhere. I went from the bedroom to the kitchen. I bet I went around my house 7 times, re-looking. I said, if those cats got my wallet, I'm going to kill every one of them. I'm going to put them out of my house. I'm going to let something else happen to them. Oh, you know where I found it? In my chair, in between the handles. So, Roy, I'm losing my mind. All right, let's.
You do make trackers nowadays.
Ask how well that works with Terry when she comes in. We put a clapper on her keys.
No, you put it on the app on your phone.
Oh, you can try. Well, I knew it was in the house. I just didn't know where in the house it was. Hey, did you find your glasses?
What glasses?
The ones on your face. You see, that's it. I said, man, where's my glasses? And I'm walking around trying to find my... Hey, they're on my eyes. All right. Envy. No, my glasses don't go on my phone. Envy. Let's talk about envy. Envy, if you really want to think about it, is a discontentment that you have. And that's, well, an ill will. Okay? So those are the two words that really describe the heart condition. You are discontentment and have ill will over another person's success. And you desire for something that another person has. Now, as I was saying, is it wrong to desire what somebody else? No, not really. As long as we don't take that extra step and become discontented or have ill will that somebody else has got something. Let's just talk about this. How about job? In the job, somebody gets a promotion over you that just came into the company maybe after you did, and you're like, well, you know, I was working for that promotion. You know, I've been here longer. That's not fair. That's not right. And so you begin to have a feeling of ill will to that person. Let's go over to Proverbs. Let's look at Proverbs chapter 14. And look at verse 30. A sound heart is life to the body, but envy is a rottenness to the bones. All right, think about this let's use this illustration. A sound heart. You know, we have to have a good, healthy heart in order to live, right? So how do we get a healthy heart? We take care of ourselves. Well, how do we take care of ourselves? We're just going around in circles here. How do we take care of ourselves? Well, eat right, correct? We try to exercise. I'm not saying we can all do it, but we try to exercise. Regular checkups. And when we say eat right, what does that mean? Heart healthy, but, you know, well, put the fork down every once in a while. Slide back from the table. When after you eat, go out on that little walk. All right? These are what the doctors are trying to tell us to do so that we have a sound, good, healthy heart. Now, that does not mean if we do these things that we're going to have that. Okay? But yet, if we do these things, it will help cut down on our heart issues, cholesterol, all these good things. And you know, when my doctor told me about 20 years ago that I better watch out what I was eating, I was laughing at him. I'm like, man, I'm 40 years old. I ain't got nothing to worry about. I'm going to eat what I want, when I want, and how much I want. And now I'm 62. I'm like, man, I wish I listened to myself. I wish I listened to my doctor. Okay, now go on. Let's read the rest of it. But envy is the rottenness to the bones. Now let's take out envy and let's just think about this. Envy is the thing that is rotten, that will destroy the heart, the spiritual heart. The things that destroy the physical heart, that doesn't make that heart sound anymore, are the things that are not good for us, right? That's the same concept with us spiritually. The things that is rotten to the heart, mainly in this instance, envy, or being discontented, or having that ill will for someone, you know, it's going to cause the heart to callous. Again, that's what we're talking about. Preventing these things from allowing our heart to become hard. You know, a person can be a faithful, church-going person. They can live a morally good life, but yet they can harbor enough envy in the heart. And not only envy, okay? There's other emotions that we can harbor in our heart that can cause us to lose our soul. But envy, a person can harbor enough envy in their heart that will damn their soul in the day of judgment. Think about that. Now, nobody knows about it but me and God. You're envy and you're willing to wish ill will or have discontentment for someone to the point that you're ready or willing to lose your soul. Is it worth it? Is that job worth it? Is that car worth it? Is anything worth losing your soul on the day of judgment? No. No. There was a quote that I found about envy, and it came from Socrates. Socrates, yeah. Envy is the daughter of pride. Now, we all know that pride is wrong, and the Bible condemns it. But here, Socrates writes, envy is the daughter of pride, the author of murder and revenge, the begetter of secret sedition, perpetual tormentor of virtue. Envy is the filthy slime of the soul, a venom, a poison, a quicksilver which consumeth the flesh and drieth up the marrow of the bones. Well, I think he hit it right on the head, didn't he? Let's go over to Hebrews chapter 4 and look at verse 12. Corey, when you get there, would you read that to us? Because how do we fight envy? How do we fight the callousness of a heart? The writer of Hebrews lets us know. Hebrews chapter 4, verse 12. Please, Corey.
For the word of God is quick and powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to dividing asunder of soul and spirit, and of the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart.
The thoughts and intent of what? The heart. Where are these ill feelings that the heart... Now, I'll just answer my own question. From the heart, a heart that is not controlled, a heart that is becoming hard, comes these ill feelings and others that we'll look at in this study that will continue to aid that heart to grow harder and harder. And what did the writer there say to use? The Bible. Use the Word. Because when we study the Word on a daily basis, that the Word has a way to penetrate the heart. The Word has a way to make our heart soft or softer and cause us to reflect on what we're doing. Now, let's go back to the book of Proverbs. Let's look at Proverbs chapter 4 and verse 23. Because here I think we can see that envy is a product of the heart. Verse 23. Somebody read that for me.
Keep the heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life.
Keep the heart with all diligence. What does that word diligence mean? Care. Okay. Keep your heart with all diligence. What else could it mean?
Well, in a way it means work, because it takes work.
Okay. Even though the word doesn't actually mean work, it does take work in order to keep that heart. Yes, that's exactly right. Good point.
Something you have to work at.
Something that you've got to work at. Yeah, most definitely. So all these things There are so many things that we've got to work at with the heart, because the writer said, or Solomon said, out of them do what? Spring the issues of life. Now, if we don't control do you believe that we need to watch our mouth? Control our tongue? What did James say about the tongue? It's the hardest thing for man to control. And there are times that, our tongue gets us in trouble, right? Even though we are trying to control our tongue, right? Even though we're trying to watch sometimes without thinking, we let it loose, don't we?
That's the easiest thing in the world.
Easiest thing, Coy, isn't it? Now, can we use the tongue without speaking outwardly? What did Solomon say? Out of the heart spring the issues of life. We can think these things. God hears it. Sometimes people think that what they say nobody hears, and they forget that God hears and sees everything, right? They forget that. So, Lisa, I'm going to use you as an example here for a minute. Joey and Alex, if they know Mama's not watching, what do they do? Whatever they want. But if they know Mama's around.
Then they watch what they do.
Yesterday, I was sitting by Lisa, and Phil was sitting there, and Jess was sitting at the table, and Alex was sitting across from Lisa. Alex was being a little... he was wired. I wasn't going to use the word, but he was being a typical boy. And Lisa told him to do something. He said no. Or something along that line. And she said, what? And I'm going to get you. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Give me your iPad. No! You said that if you turn it on under the table, you was going to take it away from him. You know what he did? He looked under the table.
Oh, he looked under there.
Yeah, he looked under. When we know God is watching us, do you think we're more careful? But when we forget about that God watches us, that's when we make mistakes.
I heard a phrase one time that,
Bless you.
I heard a phrase one time that words, hurtful words, are like toothpaste. Once it's out of the tube, you can't put it back.
You can't put it back. I bet I can. I'll get me a funnel. I'll put it down there. I may not get it all, but I'll put some. Roy.
I believe that envy
Envy?
is bringing our nation to its destruction.
Okay, explain that.
A British journalist wrote, 20 years ago, that the American experiment with democracy would work just fine until enough of the electorate discovers, because of promises from politicians, that they can vote themselves free stuff. It's been promised that the government will take from the rich and give to the poor. So, inasmuch as most people are envious,
Okay, I see where you're going. Yeah.
that is coming to fruition right before our
Yeah,
eyes.
I want what you got. I don't want to have to work for it. I want what you got, and I'm going to take it from you. You owe me. Yeah, envy. It's a product of the heart. Let's go over to the book of Psalm. Psalm 119. The longest chapter in the book, of the Bible rather. Psalm 119 and verse 80. Now, I want you to pay attention to the personal pronouns here. He says, let my heart be what? Okay, now the writer here is saying, I'm not worried about everybody else's heart. I don't care how your heart is. You're the one that's going to have to face God, not me, for you. But let me, well, I lost my place. Verse 80. Let my heart be what? Blameless. Regarding what? God's statutes, that I may not be ashamed. Wow. Think about that. Think about that for a moment. Let my heart not be blameless. Don't let God put this on our account. Why? Because I don't want to be ashamed. So what am I going to do? I'm going to use God's Word to try to protect my heart, to watch out for my heart. Watch what I say and think. And I know, friends, I know you and I both know we are going to make a mistake every now and then. It's going to happen, okay? Sometimes, like I said a while ago, it's when we don't think about it. When our mind is not on watching what we do, what we say, and that God is watching us, that's when Satan sneaks in, and that's when he gets us. That's when we mess up. All right, let's go to the New Testament. Let's look at 2 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 7. Whoever gets there first, go ahead and read.
God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind.
Okay, God hasn't given us what?
Spirit of fear.
He hasn't given us the spirit of fear, but He's given us a power. He's given us the ability to do what, Paul wrote?
Love and to have a sound mind.
To have a sound mind. If we love God, we're going to keep His commandments, the Bible tells us. Okay? If I love the Bible, then I'm going to have a mind that is sound. Now, what does it mean to be sound in mind? Roy, what do you think? What's a sound-minded person?
Sound mind,
Minded person,
one that is well rooted in his beliefs and convictions.
Okay, but there's a problem with that. Because you can be rooted in your convictions, your own ideas, and be wrong, right?
Well, the key word there is sound.
You can be sound in your own things.
This is akin to the word good.
Good. And I know what you're saying. Anthony, what do you think?
Clear thoughts.
Clear thoughts?
Able to properly distinguish what's right and wrong.
Okay, and that brings up another point. Can we, as Christians, distinguish what is right and wrong? Alex, 3 years old, 4 years old, 5?
6.
See, they're growing up on us, guys. 6 years old. He distinguished yesterday, with Mama sitting there, what was right and what was wrong, didn't he? We have that ability. Okay, so what we need to do, and even this little one over here in Lisa's lap, it's going to be learning what is right and wrong. She, I said it. I didn't want to be a sexist here. So. All right. Now, I've got an example here that we can think about. Joseph. How many brothers did he have?
11.
And what happened? What happened to Joseph by his brothers? He was sold into slavery, but at first they wanted to do what? They wanted to kill him. Now, would you say that they exhibited a very false, a very dangerous form of enviness? Well, what were they envy of? Wait a minute. What were they envious of Joseph about?
Their father's love for him.
Okay. So, his father's love for him. Sarah, what did you say? Okay, they were jealous. Jealousy and enviness go hand in hand. Who else? Is there somebody else that said something?
I was just going to say relationship with his father.
Relationship. All right. So they were envy. How come nobody brought up the fact that Joseph said that one day you're going to bow down to me? They didn't like that, did they? We're going to bow down to you. He was the youngest, right? Well, at that point, he was the youngest son. And the oldest son is the one that, is the guy, right? And he said, you're going to bow down to me one day. This dream that I had, what did his father tell him to do? There you go. Now, when his brothers saw him coming to them, because his daddy said, go see how things are going and take some supplies to your brothers, and they saw him, do you remember what they said to one another? Not that what they're going to do, but what did they say about Joseph?
Here comes the dreamer.
Here comes the dreamer. Making fun of him. Let's go over to the book of Acts. Let's go over to Acts chapter 7. It never fails. You put that mask on and your nose start running. I need to put a leash on mine. Acts chapter 7, I think I've got verse 9 there. All right. And the patriarchs, beginning envious, what happened? They sold Joseph into Egypt, but God was with him and delivered him out of his troubles, and gave him favor with wisdom in the presence of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he made him governor over Egypt and all his house. Now a famine came, and great trouble came upon the land of Egypt and Canaan, and our fathers found no substance. But when Joseph heard that there was grain in Egypt, he sent out fathers first. And the second time Joseph made known to his brothers, and Joseph's family became known to the Pharaoh. Then Joseph sent and called his father Jacob and all his relatives to him, 75 people. So Jacob went down to Egypt, and he died, he and our fathers. And they were carried back to Shechem and laid in the tomb that Abraham bought for the sum of money from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem. All right, we're in Acts chapter 7. We are reminded of the account of Joseph and his brothers. And verse 9, we are told, right there at the very beginning, that his brothers became envious of him. But God was with him, right? Now, we don't need to go back and study all about Joseph and what he went through and what went on. But what I want us to see in this text is that God was with Joseph. Now, there was a plan, I understand that. But do you think that God is not with you and I whenever we feel or wherever we experience these feelings that will cause our heart to become hardened, and God will help us through the situation? You see, things that were written aforetime were written for our learning. So when we look in the Old Testament and we see all these things, they're there for our learning, to help us. Now, if we weren't studying enviness or jealousness, when you read, or when I brought up Joseph and his brothers, what would be the first thought that would come to your mind about that account? Huh?
The envy part, when his family turned against him.
His family turned against him. Would the idea of envious ever come up in your mind? Maybe. Jealousy, maybe.
No, that's beyond jealousy.
It's still part of it, yeah.
That's beyond jealousy.
You know, I also have another example here when Paul was speaking to the Christians in Rome, that their hearts were full of envy. Let's go to Romans chapter 1 and look at verse 29. Now, area of Rome had a whole lot of problems, and Romans chapter 1 deals with a whole lot of those problems. But in verse 29 of Romans chapter 1, some of the things that were going on with the people in this time, in this area, was that they had a problem with envy. But there were others. Look at verse 28. We'll begin there. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a debased mind, to do those things which are not fitting. Notice that. When your mind is away from God, when your mind is not with God, that's when issues start stepping up in the heart. Being filled with all unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, evil-mindedness. They are whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, violent, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, undiscerning, untrustworthy, unloving, unforgiving, merciful, who, knowing the righteous judgment of God, that those who practice such things are deserving of death. Now, there was another word that was used in this text, the word covetousness. When we look at the definition of envy, I believe that we can also say that when we covet after something, that's part of being envious. Would you agree? In Luke chapter 12 and verse 15, we are told, beware of covetousness. In Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 5, Paul said, don't let it even be named among you. In Colossians chapter 3 verses 5 and 6, wrath of God will come on these individuals. What is wrath? Extreme anger. Yeah. And so our attitude needs to be where we hate covetousness. Exodus chapter 18, verse 21. And then, well, let's read this. Let's go over to Proverbs chapter 28. Proverbs chapter 28. I think it's best to read this text. Proverbs chapter 28 and verse 16. A ruler who lacks A ruler who lacks understanding is a great oppressor, but he who hates covetousness will prolong his days. Now, I know that this text is talking about a ruler. And who wrote Proverbs? Solomon. And what did Solomon ask God for? Wisdom to do what? To rule the people. And so God said, I appreciate that. I love you for what you've asked for. And because you haven't asked for riches and all these other things, I'm going to do what? I'm going to give it to you. And I'm going to prolong your days. I believe that text kind of refers to or implies there. Now, Solomon was the wisest man who has ever lived. And this book is written by Solomon. And he did not even, he didn't like covetousness. His years were prolonged because of his love for God and what he had asked for. Now, he did make mistakes later on. Okay, that's not what we're talking about. But what did he do? He asked for wisdom. He asked for wisdom to rule the people. Roy?
I've always wondered, since Solomon asked for wisdom, and God gave him wisdom, but then he proceeded to take unto himself hundreds of wives and concubines.
He asked for wisdom to do what? To rule his people as a ruler. I think there's the distinction. Now, my opinion, this is opinion 3-3. I think his mind got a little big. I think he got a little bit too big for his britches, as my daddy used to say. And he says, well, I'm the king. I can do what I want. What did the Bible say caused his heart to turn from God? The women.
And their gods.
And their gods. That's right. So he, in my opinion, I think he got the big head. Even though God did God take away that wisdom? When God gave Solomon the wisdom to rule his people, and he started wandering away from God because of all these strange wives, did God ever take away that wisdom? No. What did he do? He allowed Solomon to make his bed. Did he? Make your choice.
And in the end, he said it was all nothing.
Vanity. It was emptiness. I tried to make me this. I tried to make me that. I had all this and all that. And in the very end, it's all vanity, empty. So, yeah.
I've known in my decades on this old earth, I've known a few people who it seemed were continually more concerned about others than themselves. But I've never known one of those people to be envious, prideful, or jealous.
Well, you know, this is how I view things sometimes is, you know, when we're involved in when we get involved with one sin, it's just a step away to another because of what we are studying right now, a calloused heart. All right, we will end here, and next Lord's Day we will pick up, Lord willing, with Roman numeral 1 in our study about envy.